mainly, I would say, off the back of the recent Rogue nerf that happened.
Blizzards and stuff, and even Blizzard and Flamestrike. If you
And I'm going to give you some heads up. We're going to be seeing a lot of Mage in like 3 different weeks throughout Grandmasters. So I'm pretty pumped for it. Let's go into game number 1. Ryvius versus Flurry. And something I wanted to note as well, the 1 Sea Giant in Flurry's list might be deemed as a negative against Druid because Sea Giant gets reduced for the minions on board. Druid plays a lot of minions. You can do the maths. But I will say, when I've played this matchup, especially recently, if I've played the Sea Giant into the board, then it either gets ignored or actually dealt with a Savage Roar, with like a couple of trades.
Yeah.
So Sea Giant actually isn't that good because Druid has the tools to just go wide anyway and just kind of ignore you unless you get exactly taunts. And 10 drops as taunts don't really exist. I don't think there's any outside of getting big bad Archmage into a summon 6-drop taunt specifically.
Which is very unlikely.
It's a big ask, isn't it, if it's for the game win?
I mean, if you look at it, Sea Giant, the way the card works, if you can play it for 2 mana, that means there's 8 minions on the board, and if there's 8 minions on the board, you might just be dead.
Not yours.
Yeah, exactly. It's unlikely to be yours. I like what Flurry kept in his opening hand here. He was offered Elemental Vacation, Cyclone, and Ray of Frost, and there's not that many early plays you can do, especially on the play without the coin. So he kept just 3 cards he knew he could be able to use in the first few turns to just to get like the Cyclone on the board, but also to just generate more resources. Maybe find some random AoE from the Cyclone, providing some more spells.
Yeah, and already you see 1 Ryvius shaking his head, and 2 also not only the strong mana Cyclone play, but also the respect as well, because in this matchup when you need removal and freezes that are very valuable, you don't just want to randomly throw them away. Right? Even though you get a good Cyclone, your spells might suck, because I'll be honest, Flurry's spells kind of suck apart from the explosion they got from Cyclone.
1 mana Scorch isn't bad either, but yeah, if you get something like 7 Luna's Pocket Galaxy, suddenly you're like, oh no, now what?
Yeah. So it wasn't just an arbitrary, okay, I've got Cyclone and Evocation, I'm just going to play stuff. They did remove some threats, but already you start to see now, Flurry's like, right, how do I kill this board enough that it doesn't run away with my opponent? Right. But how do I also not just make bad turns? Yeah. Because, for example, if he tries Ray of Frost, then he's already used 1 set of Ray of Frosts, and then he's just more cards down. And also, I imagine next turn he wants to Vex Crow and utilize that 1 mana spell.
Ryvius on one of the unfortunate hands with Druid where you don't draw many minions to play. He had a little bit of early game, right? He had the Landscaping, and then he had the Cable Rat into Kobold Lackey. But otherwise, if these minions get clear, there's not much else Ryvius can do. War Druid Lodi is an interesting addition to the Token Druid list. It wasn't run in the, I think, standard list back in the
originally,
day. Originally, yeah. But I find that it's a good addition against Mage, right? If you have a big board and you need that extra push with like a Roar, you can rush it, Roar, get some extra damage in. And also you can do something like this. You play out the Poisonous form, and this can block a Giant from coming down.
Yeah, I think I was actually surprised that it wasn't played when it first came out.
Yeah,
because, yes, each singular, the form is not like a relevant power-costed minion, but the fact that it has like, what, 5, 6 choices?
4, 5? I
think it's 5. I know it's definitely more than 4.
Yeah.
It means that it's so flexible. It does something in every matchup, right? And a card like that, especially in Specialist, might actually be even more valuable.
Yeah, exactly. That makes a lot of sense.
So we see, most importantly, Khadgar just get removed without much real to-do for Ryvius. He got rid of it and is still keeping that board relatively wide and threatening. And Flurry, Khadgar was never going to just win the game with this hand, but still, it's just a big power turn that is going to wane it.
He was recognizing that he needed to throw out something out there. He realized that Ryvius was kind of struggling to develop something on the board, so if you can throw out the Khadgar as a 2-mana 2/2 just to fight for board and reduce the need for using all your spells, that might just be a good way to do it. Looks like Flurry might be coming down with the Vex Crow. I imagine if he does that, he'll likely go double Ray of Frost.
He can't. That's his...
Oh, was that the second half? I thought he used both copies.
No, sorry, he had two, right? You're right, you're completely right. I think he
might want to hold on a little bit longer.
You know what the hardest part about Druid is? Deciding the point in which you need to react. Because right now, there's 3 damage on board, right? That is not a lot of damage. You can take 3 damage many times before you die. That was very good, sorry, from the Vexco there. Yeah. Look at Ryvius' face, he's like, come on! But, just quickly, getting back to my point, is this... you can't just go all in removing every single minion they make, because they will win that war. They have more stuff than you have removal. So deciding when it's relevant to actually go is very difficult, because the second you decide wrong, the druid normally just kills you, and it gets very, very difficult.
I like this a lot from Ryvius, recognizing he needs to clear with a Vexcro, but also not wanting to unstealth his War Druid Lodi. He could have opted for playing the Whispering Woods off the top, but against some random cards in Flurry's hand, maybe he thinks it's safer to just go, you know, Whispering Woods and then just guarantee and get a Blessing of the Ancients off. That way it's a little bit harder to clear.
I like it. I like this too. Going wide as possible. And the Blessing of Ancients is going to be clutch, because that Arcane Explosion would have caused issues if Ryvius didn't have the buff.
We might see Flurry taking with the second apprentice picked up now. He might be going for a huge mana cyclone turn.
I think he has to. Sounds trash, right?
There's not much else he can do.
Oh. He's doing this as he's holding off then?
So he plays 2 mana for that. The Polymorph, it's 5. He can play the... So if he plays the second Sorcerer's Apprentice, he can still play the rest of his hand. He might want to hold back on the Arcane Explosion, but maybe he wants to just throw it in to juice up the Cyclone. His hand's very linear right now. He needs to find something else to do with these spells.
I think Flurry quite rightly just has to go in, and he actually removes 2 minions with this Ray of Frost. This card is so sick.
Yeah, we saw this when the card was first announced, when Peter Whalen was showing us what you could do with it. He was saying you could pair it with a Frost Nova, kill off 2 things, and that's exactly what people started doing with the deck.
He's a prophet!
Yeah.
I am. So it's honestly was in my top 3 cards of the expansion. I just thought it's nutty. Freezing is powerful. You have other options with damage, and it's effectively 4 Ray of Frost. But Flurry has a massive whiff on one of those cards, since Lunar Pocket Galaxy on top of a Lunar Pocket Galaxy doesn't do much. But double Flame Strike and the Cinderstorm.
That'll help Flurry quite a bit to clear up some future boards.
It's weird, right? It's good. But Flurry needs to kill his opponent at some point, because I still don't think he will be able to outlast. There's 2 Forest Saids in the deck, which means there's 4. Yeah. So 4 waves separately of minions. There's still the Soul of the Forest and another Soul of the Forest left, which is multiple waves as well. And then there's still all the burst damage from the Savage Roars. And also, once you edge to turns where you can Archmage Vargoth and then a buff, things get silly, and Flame Strike is expensive enough that, great, you clear the board, but with the Death Rattle, you're dead the next turn anyway, because you can't clear it twice in one turn, which is why this Druid deck can win some games.
It's true. Another, a side effect of playing the Apprentice with the Minor Cyclone is now you just have these on the board. So you can actually fight with these. These Flame Strikes might let him control the board enough and start to chip away the damage with the Sorcerer's Apprentice and the Cyclone. We've seen a swipe come out already from Ryvius to clear Vexcro earlier, so it might be difficult for him to deal with this board at this point. And we see him already preemptively hitting a Sorcerer's Apprentice in case his board gets frozen again.
Yeah, and so it begins now with the Soul of the Forest. Flurry's going to get annoyed. This is like when you've just weeded the garden, and then you look back the next day and they're all back again. You've got to chop it all down.
His Giants are free.
Well, they'll be 0, yeah.
They'll be 0. Well, it gets set to 1, but it gets reduced because there are cards in your hand. So from 1, it gets reduced down to 0.
MVP Sandbinder. Ryvius knows as well.
Importantly, also, this Sandbinder being played for 1 with the Sorcerer's Apprentice left on the board means that Flurry can Flame Strike and ping something off if he wants to. So he can ping one of the front halves of these minions. He can
Flame Strike and just Cinderstorm if he wants to as well.
Yeah, he can do that as well.
He can pretty much press all his buttons if he really likes. And this was the recovery point potentially for Flurry, and this was my big issue. All the clears are great, but Flurry needed a way to actually win the game, and this Sandbinder into the free Mountain Giant is definitely a way to win the game, and that might have been the turn that Flurry was after.
Yep, Ryvius not drawing a lot of minions. I feel like Druid can sometimes be hit or miss. Obviously, if you have some of the crazy starts, we have Acorn Bear into Dreamway Guardians into landscaping, suddenly you have a huge board. But if you miss all those cards and your board gets cleared once or twice, and you just have all these buffs in your hand, it can be difficult. Fortunately, the Mark of the Low and the Power of the Wild gives him some sort of refill, but he's down to 1 card left in hand. If this board gets removed and he doesn't draw something like a Forest Sade, he might just be locked out of the game.
Well, those are good cards.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be around the bush with that one. There is just Flame Strike as well, because furthering on my point is that was not the most fun turn for Ryvius whatsoever, but if there was no generated Flame Strike, then he still isn't a bad spot, because the Giant can't mindlessly go face, because Flurry will die. So he still had to do something, but drawing into now Conjurer's Call, now the taunts. Based on this draw, I was going to say, I think that draw was basically deciding who was going to, if he was going to concede or not. And always just read out cards. We've got the full graphics for you. So personally, the Harrison Ziliax, like, yeah, okay, you could argue Ziliax is way too low, but a 4-drop that you can do on its own. You just play it. There's no combo required. It's a 2/4 that can help with some of these early game minions. That also draws you a threat or a cheap combo piece, which is also another minion that can kill something on the board later. So I really like double Sea Binder.
Sandbinder.
I just looked. I was about to talk about Sea Giants. I was like, new card, Sea Binder.
Spoilers.
4 mana 4/2, draw a Sea Giant. But anyway, let's go into game number 2. And we can see some of these cards already. Flurry has the Blizzard in hand. He has a Sea Giant now. He did mulligan them away, which I think is correct. But let's look at Ryvius' open hand, because I just want to see how savage this Fairy Dragon is.
Yeah, Flurry kind of a nod, like, okay, guess that's staying there for a while.
Like, honestly, do you consider just...
No.
No? Okay. Because I haven't played against Fairy Dragon against Druid, right? You know, I haven't really got this experience, but I don't know how scared Flurry is supposed to be, is my real question right now.
I mean, it's a bit of a problem, but I think the Mana Cyclone is much more important than just contesting Fairy Dragon. Like, he kept in his opening hand, knowing he was on the coin, and thinking, okay, I can just get some extra gas with the Cyclone. Fortunately, he picked up an Elemental Evocation, and now a Ray of Frost as well. Obviously, they can't be used on the Fairy Dragon, but he's kind of piecing together some sort of turn where he can efficiently use this Mana Cyclone. Perhaps if he ends up finding a Conjurer's Calling, he forgoes the Mana Cyclone. There we go. I was thinking Mana Elemental.
I'm throwing you off now with my Sea Binder. And that's going to be poison. I was going to say, I think I'd be very happy if I was Flurry, and I would go for Mountain Giant, because right now you're almost certainly not dead next turn, and you need something to win the game.
Yep.
The problem is, as you mentioned, Blizzard's looking a little bit too slow right now. There is the Nova, but if you Nova, you're just doing nothing else. So I think because of the Loti on the board now what? Flurry has to go for the Mana Cyclone, and he just needs something. And this is why I've spoke a lot to you in the last couple of days, why I think Dart Frogs, if not in main deck, are sick for your anti-aggro deck, because who cares about stealth? Who cares about untargetable? It hits all the minions that you want it to. So I think Dart Frog is something to keep an eye out for this week in Mage.
Yeah, not included in any of Flurry's lists. And personally, when I was trying this list out myself, I looked at Dart Frog and I'm like, nah. You know what, it's a 2-mana 1/3, how much is it really going to do? But I started playing against it a bit more on board when I was playing some, like, Murloc Shaman. They played a Dart Frog, started playing some spells, I'm like, wow.
You just lose, right? You can't put anything, stick anything to the board, it's insane. Especially with decks that don't have from-hand removal, because you need a minion to kill it. It doesn't let you stick minions, so you lose. It is my experience in a lot of those matchups anyway.
Flurry recognizing that obviously the Giant isn't good enough by itself. Maybe with the Conjurer's Calling, he might have been able to put 2 threats on board and say, alright, your Loti kills one.
It's so funny, isn't it, that we see the Loti and now just causing havoc with cards like Ray of Frost, right?
Yeah.
He can only Ray of Frost the 3/3, and then the other 2 minions are a bit of a problem. We'll still get at it, but this Sea Giant is a big deal, and before everyone laughs at me, yes, I said Sea Giants aren't that great in the Druid matchup, because you normally get them proc by your opponent having the board. If you have the board full of taunts, then the cheap Sea Giant is, of course, fantastic.
No Conjurer's Call to capitalize off of it that much, but the fact that Flurry Magic tricked a second Mirror Image gave him the chance to actually, develop the Sea Giant and have some sort of proactive game plan instead of just, I hope this Cyclone gives me another, Blizzard, Flame Strike, Arcane Explosion.
I think right now as well, Flurry's game plan's probably changed to just adding up how many times he needs to hit Ryvius in the face with the Sea Giant. Because
Nova?
There's Nova, there's Blizzard, there's Ray of Frost twice, Ray of Frost 3 times? I think the Ray of Frost on the left is a secondary one from the Twin Spell. So all I mean is, there's a lot of freeze that means Flurry can stall out the aggressive side of Ryvius' game plan here.
So Ryvius had the option of going Soul of Forest, but deciding to use the full 5 mana this turn to create an extra Panther, kind of go a bit wider, and still get the buff off on board, allowing him to clear off the Mirror Images with the buff, which is lackey.
Especially with Ice... we cannot name cards today. No. Ray of Frost. Okay. There we go. With Ray of Frost, I think having just more attacks is way better than less attacks that do more damage, because one freeze and suddenly you're out of business. I would really like to see Flurry just freeze, go face.
Well, he needs 3 turns, right? If he Novas this turn, goes face for 10 damage. Next turn he can Blizzard, go face for 10 damage, and the turn after he goes face for 10 damage again. That's 30 damage, if I count correctly.
What you could work out... Oh, the buff actually helps him, right?
What do you mean?
The Ryvius buffing the minions in a roundabout way helps Flurry.
Yeah.
Because one thing he's going to be aware of is if Soul of the Forest comes down and he blizzards and it kills the minions, well, they're not frozen the next turn, so they can attack. But because most of them are 3 health or above, as long as they don't take any sort of chip damage, then the blizzard won't kill them, and then won't summon minions that can actually attack, so it's a pretty big deal here. He's just going to go Ray of Frost. I did wonder if he wanted to hold.
I like this a bit better because it kind of, first of all, it removes Ryvius' board a little bit and still allows him to go for the Frost Nova Blizzard game plan. Obviously with a Wrath or just maybe a swipe coming up here, the War Druid Lodi could end up clearing the Mountain Giant, but I kind of like going a bit deeper on board before trying to go for the game plan. If Ryvius ended up having even just a Wrath, which we see he does have in his hand, and he Wrath the Cyclone to stop the 3-turn setup, you can now use your freezes. You don't have board still, and Ryvius' board is now going to start to push.
Super brave though, isn't it? Because one swipe and Flurry loses his board.
Yeah.
And that is very scary. It's not like Ryvius is on one card. That is very, very scary in my opinion. A single swipe and you're dead.
The thing is, so Flurry knows that Ryvius has switched to secondary list because he saw the Fairy Dragon come out, which means that the 2 forest states have been cut. That's some pretty heavy top end, right? So if you don't have to deal with all that extra top end and you deal with these minions as they come down, sure, a swipe ends up clearing the board here, but he has to trade off the War Druid Lodi. There's only 2 things left on the board if swipe comes out because there's 6 mana and not much else you can do with 2 mana. At that point, your board's clear, but you have another Cyclone. You can bridge the gap a little bit until Power of Creation. You can even use a Blizzard just to clear something, and then Ryvius doesn't have that many minions left to actually fight for the board with. So even this without without swipe coming out, Ryvius had to trade most of his board away, and if we look at his hand, in terms of just developing minions, he can Mark of the Loa for Raptors, or he can Power the Wild for 1 Panther, and that's it, unless he draws something else like a Whispering Woods or what are they called? Landscaping.
Yeah. It is scary though, because Flurry's hand isn't exactly fantastic either. And suddenly, with the trades and the way his board was cleared, he actually did no damage to Ryvius. So he is really on this train of outlasting him because Ryvius has chosen to cut double Forest Aid for that just insane value. Frostbolt's not bad though.
Flurry going for a much smaller Mana Cyclone turn here, just Tome of Intellect to get a random card, Ray of Frost, and getting 2 cards back from the Mana Cyclone. So it looks like he's trying to set up for perhaps a Blizzard turn and then going into Power of Creation to try and contest the board that way. Hoping that Ryvius can't put enough on the board for Blizzard not to be able to clear.
It's a strange worry as well now because Flurry needs a way to win the game, to actually kill his opponent. And at the moment, his hand doesn't really achieve that, outside of maybe the Sea Giant and then drawing Conjurer's Call, of course. But to increase his draws, he only has Research Project, which will also increase Ryvius' draws. And I feel like you were very scared of the Druid getting, the combo pieces to go wide with Soul and then Soul of the Forest and then Savage Draw and then they're just dead. So it's going to be tricky the next couple of turns for Flurry to just keep a hold of this game, in my opinion.
I like this a lot for Ryvius, using the Keeper Saladras that he drew in combination with the Power of the Wild to get some extra buffs. Allowing him to clear the Mana Cyclone while maintaining a board. Would he know that Flurry had switched to his secondary list yet? He's seen a Sea Giant come down, so he doesn't know for certain yet, does he?
No, because it's Blizzard, Polymorph, and a Sandbinder. So Sandbinder and Sea Giant he runs one of anyway, and he's not seen any
the card's unique to Flurry's second list. Ryvius hasn't seen yet. But if he thinks Ryvius has switched, then making it kind of a taller board is better because the Blizzard just doesn't clear it. And, just in general, he knows that the Cyclomage can't deal single target.
Yeah, and I also think just going wide is the key anyway.
Yep.
I don't think you need to go too tall. And now, look, Flurry just... See what I mean? He can't really... He's got a lot of cards, but none of them really do much.
He does have enough mana to play the Sea Giant, but you might just be dead if you do that.
Or if the Sea Giant dies, then what?
Yeah.
What's the threat outside of exactly the Power of Creation?
That's a great pickup for Ryvius.
Oh, on time.
On turn 8 too, he can throw out the Whispering Woods and Soul of the Forest. Doesn't even clear up his board, he has 6 minions. But it's Looks like he's opting for something else. Oh, going for the Raptors instead. Maybe using the Wisps as refill.
And also, is he just potentially worried about, because of generated cards, about Arcane Explosion?
Random Arcane Explosions, perhaps, yeah.
Because he got Arcane Explosion last game. And this is, to be honest, just as good, if not a bit better, because of that play around. So, and anything else would clear the board anyway, right? So you may as well play around the one card that could really mess you up through the Whispering Woods. And look at this, it's just... It's why I kind of wanted to see Flurry play a bit more aggressive. I'm not saying he took a wrong line. It's just, I've played this matchup a fair few times, and I hate this point in the game where, okay, I can buy a turn or so, but it just makes the game go longer. The result is often the same. Magic tricks are wonderful things, though.
An extra Nova pickup isn't bad. Could go counterspell as well, but he knows that Flurry knows that Ryvius has two halves of the power of the Wild in hand because the Keeper's still Adris, so it could be easily played around if Ryvius chooses to. Second freeze coming out.
It's one thing that surprised me when Archmage Vargoth came out. You know the way they added like the separate spells for the choose ones as a completely separate spells because of the Philadris?
Yeah.
Then it confused me that Archmage Vargoth, if you cast Power of the Wild, does not cast the same
one
choice.
Necessarily.
Yeah, it can do, but it doesn't always. And I was like, oh, that's weird, because even within Power of the Wild, and you choosing one, it's not casting that spell, it's casting Power of the Wild, which was and it's a small thing to know with Druid as well. You do need to be aware of these things.
Holding the Whispering Woods. So these, obviously, if Flurry clears this board, the Whispering Woods aren't going to be that powerful because they're just some, 2/1/1s. But it's kind of a tall task, right? So I like Ryvius just going farther in on this board because I quite frankly can't see how it would be cleared.
And the thing is, even if there's a Flame Strike generated, Flame Strike, well, okay, I still have 5 2/2s.
4, but...
Oh, sorry, 4.
Yeah,
all this sparkly stuff is just distracting me from the little skull and crossbone death rattle signal. But still, he has stuff on the board to then just push more damage. And if there is a Flame Strike, then that's pretty much Flurry's whole turn. So then he just gets free damage and then gets to, at least get a couple more Wisps on the board.
So Flurry could go for something like Khadgar, making the Sea Giant 4-mana, playing the Sea Giant and then Nova. But then you're kind of out of freezes, at least in your hand. There might be, I believe there's a Frost Nova left in the deck, because one of those was discovered from Magic Trick. But after that freeze comes out, you kind of have to do something with the board next turn, otherwise there's the threat of just Savage Roar or another Blessing of the Ancients being drawn, and it's just enough to kill you.
There needs to be something, doesn't there?
Yeah, that's the thing. So he's trying to figure out what he can do to over 2 or maybe 3 turns try to swing the game around.
I don't really like this.
What else is he going to do?
I guess, the lack of Khadgar. I guess he's protecting Khadgar to go really nutty next turn, and that's fine, but I just feel like you just need everything you can possibly get on the board.
Yeah. I think, like, Khadgar...
Because next turn he can still Khadgar, he can Conjurer's Call, he can Khadgar Power of Creation, which actually might be the better play.
Perhaps.
I think Power of Creation's better. You've got way high odds to get taunts, and then you make a ton of them.
Yeah, Damage Stegatron could come up. Sunwalker, perhaps.
There's the
Violet
Guard, I'm calling it. Pretty sure that's not what it's called. But
yeah, the 6-mana 4/7 spell damage.
The card that's just better than Archmage.
Violet Warden, perhaps.
Probably, yeah. And before someone tweets me, not versus Black Knight. Okay.
Oh, it's worse against Black Knight.
Yeah, that's what it's like. I've heard it before. But I am 100% certain it's better to go with Power of Creation, because even if you say you could get a million Mulch Munchers, it doesn't do the job because of the death rattles. So wait, is he going to go for this on the seed?
I don't know.
I don't like this at all. Like, ugh, it's just not good enough.
Oh my goodness!
It's just not good enough, though, right?
That's the thing. Even if you hit exactly, you'd need something crazy like 4 Mulch Munchers, which is just incredibly unlikely. So I do think the Power of Creation might have been. Oh, wait. Ryvius upset about this one.
The Frostbolt's big, though, right?
The Frostbolt is big.
So, because the worry for me is there was lethal on board, right?
Yeah. So if you miss, you're just dead to
so
nothing.
He chose to value the removal of 1 minion that was high attack, or at least decent attack, over the highest chance at multiple taunt minions.
So this was a big risk from Flurry, but it did happen to pay off. Ryvius doesn't have any burn from hand, so even the fact that Flurry wasn't able to, deal with the whole board or set up some taunts means that Ryvius just doesn't have enough damage to finish off Flurry. He might be able to clean up enough of the board here to prevent lethal on the backswing from Flurry, but then over 2 turns, if you're not setting up lethal yourself, then Flurry's going to just take the game.
Flurry's just invincible.
It was crazy.
He just wins games of Hearthstone somehow. Like, honestly, I am sure someone will tell me, like, the probability of the taunts saving you versus being able to play the Frostbolt and maybe getting Mulch Munchers. Because that's a trade-off, right?
Sure.
It's not just the fact there was the Frostbolt plus Mulch Munchers versus the chance of getting multiple taunts. Because remember, Power of Creation creates the same minion twice,
right?
Which will then create the same minion 4 times.
Conjurer's Calling gives you more of a spread, but not quite the same one.
So with Khadgar, if you get the taunt minion, you get 4 big taunt or 4 pretty decent-sized taunt minions.
I don't believe 2 Hakars have died, so even if 1 blood is drawn here,
that's just a concede. It's just dead, just too much damage.
Wow! Takes game.